man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
This guy's like becoming like a circus act. Like he could do this.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
To become who we want to be as individuals, and at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Like KP does like these flips after every win. Now I'm like just waiting for him to do his flips.
You can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media.
Shout out to Jalen Ramsey. He sucks.
Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Mark. Free agency's like kind of winding down a little bit. We just enjoyed, 4 days straight of March Madness basketball. It's a good time to be a sports fan. It's been exciting. I know Mark and I are really fired up about the Lions moves. Mark, how you doing, dude?
Dude, I'm okay. I watched a horrible movie last night. But before I go on a little quick rant about that movie, John is struggling with his sleep schedule coming back from Hawaii. But how was Hawaii besides the lagging effects right now?
Straight up, I'm never usually a guy that's like upset to leave a vacation. Like usually I'm kind of ready to get back to work and like things like that after, when I'm on a trip. I'm kind of like a homey person. I like to be back at my, my place, my routine, all that good stuff. I was devastated to leave Hawaii. That was the most amazing vacation I've ever been on. We did a lot of really cool shit. We went up to, like a dormant volcano, looked like the surface of Mars, which was pretty cool. Rode to Hana, which is just like a giant strip of like nature. Ate easily the best seafood I've ever had in my entire life. Went to a luau. Just good ass time all around. Feeling definitely like relaxed, refreshed, good to go. Sounds like you saw a horrible movie though, and I do want to hear about this because you said it apparently was supposed to be a good movie, right?
It's supposed to be a good movie, so I don't want to spoiler alert for people out there that are listening. If you haven't seen the movie Memento by Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan made this movie, and I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I've never seen a movie. Never seen a movie by him I didn't like up until last night, right? So I'm going into it. I had some downtime. I was like, I'm gonna watch this movie, and I was like, I asked my brother. He was home. I was like, let's scroll through. We saw it. I'm like, I heard really good things. He's like, well, I've never heard anything about it. Let's watch it. Memento. Basically, the plot is this guy has short-term memory issues. He can remember everything in his life up to an incident. And then during this incident, he hit his head and he can't form new memories. So the entire movie is like, it's out of order as well. It's like not a just timeline that goes straight. So you're like, it's just bouncing around. That part kind of bothered me as well. There's some movies that pull it off.
Don't watch Pulp Fiction then.
No. I also am not a huge fan of Pulp Fiction.
What?
I am.
All right.
I swear.
I have a bone to pick with that take.
Fiction.
That might be the take I disagree with the most that you've ever had. So,
no, I don't hate Pulp Fiction. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's overrated.
Okay.
But I don't hate it. I would watch it again. I'm just saying I think it's overrated. But Memento has a stupid ending. I never was really like entertained. It was just kind of like this, it just felt like a storyline that was just like for Christopher Nolan expectations, I was extremely let down by it. Stupid ending. Don't watch it if you haven't seen it. That's my final take on it. It's not worth it.
A different piece of media that we both, I think, watched in our entirety at this point is The Last of Us. Now that you've seen the entire season of that, what's your full takeaway? Was it worth your time? Did you see the ending
really
coming? Spoiler alert for that.
Spoiler. A lot of spoiler alerts going on. I liked The Last of Us a lot. Thought it was a really good show. They're setting up obviously for season 2. I think that's going to be based off the second game that I've already started to see some hints on what that's going to be about, which I think is going to be awesome. I thought the final episode was great. Some of the love story episodes surprised me. Didn't expect to see those. I think they did really well with those. The show overall was really good. I think there were some slow points. Probably could have had a little more action. But the action that they did have was awesome. So
yeah, I think that was the main complaint, even from like the video gamers, where actually two things. They rushed some of the plot points that took a long time in the game. I don't really agree with that take as much because of the fact that, like, of course it's going to feel longer when you're playing through a 20-hour playtime game or something like that. But then the second thing is that there really wasn't that many zombies in it all around. And so like a little bit more zombies would have been nice. And I do agree with that point.
Yeah. From what I've heard, there's more in the second season of that kind of action. So
they said they're going to roll with that. I'm happy that you liked it. That game, that story is pretty near and dear to my heart. I'm excited for you to play the game. I'm sure you'll try it at some point. Yeah, dude, like one thing I love is just how morally conflicted you feel watching that, because you're like obviously rooting for Joel, but like dude's kind of a piece of shit, right? You have to.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the whole.
It's a selfish asshole that I'm learning to love through watching this, you know?
Yeah, I don't. I think I would have done the same thing. I don't know. I think it's a hard. I don't think there was a wrong decision made. I just think it was, he didn't do anything for the wrong reasons. So I don't think that you can really bash it. A lot of people have strong opinions on that. I've been on a big Rocket League wave in terms of the gaming, the gaming world.
Nice. Making a resurgence.
Oh yeah, it's that game I could play. It never gets boring for me ever.
So what I've got, and like I don't have nearly as much time to game as I used to, which makes me sad because I freaking love video games. But what I do with Zach, who helps us out with the show, and Evan, who did a lot of the art for the Practice Squad pod, is we'll play zero build Fortnite, because none of us are really any good whatsoever at Fortnite. And so like when we have to play people that build against us, we can't keep up. But that game is like super fun if you're just trying to hang with your buds. And just...
Dude, the building techs ruined that game, and people got so good at building.
Dude, 5-story house, like in like,
yeah, dude.
You're like, what's going on? So zero build, it made the game a lot better for me. I love playing it now.
Old school Fortnite was, I loved that. And then when people started getting way too damn good at building, I was like, I can't keep up with this, dude. People are literally
you gotta squad up with
yeah, dude.
Evan and Zach and I.
You got people building like the Empire State Building in 3 clicks. I'm like, what the hell is that thing that just popped up? Can't play, dude. Can't beat those guys. Can't even compete.
All right, so we're 7 minutes in, and we have yet to mention anything related to football. So we'll give you guys just kind of what this episode's going to be. First of all, it's going to be talking about our favorite free agency teams, and then Mark and I each selected a least favorite free agency team. We're going to be talking a lot of Lions because, spoiler alert, they were probably one of the best free agency teams, not the best free agency team in Mark and I's opinion. We're probably going to do a mock draft for them too, just to kind of talk about some scenarios, some possibilities. And we're going to talk Sweet 16. Right. 16. What happened in March Madness for the first weekend?
My bracket doesn't look too hot.
I kind of anticipated that, but honestly, I said I was going to absolutely flame you when nothing you wanted to happen happened. But actually, you're right about 2 things. Big Ten, not very good. And 1 seeds also really struggling. So you were right about both of those. The problem is that if you build a bracket based on upsets, you're not going to pick the right upsets, in my opinion. Like that's just kind of what happens. Now, me, on the other hand, I'm in 3rd place out of a group of like 30 people right now, which I'm pretty excited about. The only issue is I have Duke going all the way, but my Midwest bracket is perfect. And one of my other brackets, I think, only have 1 wrong in. So like that's just kind of carrying me right now.
It's carrying you up to the top.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Duke broke my heart. I had them winning the whole thing. So
all right, so we're in the same boat there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they flubbed that game bad too. Like that was so winnable. So it was rough. But let's get into free agency stuff. We got a lot to talk about in relation to that. So let me get my screen shared here, and we're going to do top 5 teams with an honorable mention. And then we are going to talk about the teams that we think did the worst. So first team that we're going to chat about, number 6 on this list, is the Carolina Panthers. Mark and I originally had them in the top 5, and then we decided that there's another team that we think outperformed. So biggest thing, right? They're locked in for who their next franchise quarterback is going to be, which I think is a positive takeaway. Went and signed Thielen, which I've heard veteran receiver, goes both ways on whether or not that's a good move. They got Miles Sanders, who, I think he was technically the 2 back last year, but he's easily a starting caliber running back. It's kind of running back by committee in the NFL at this point anyways. Added a little beef to their offensive and defensive line. Got Hayden Hurst at tight end, which is not the worst move in the world.
They got your favorite ginger there.
Yeah, and then this is the rough one. Is obviously he's going to be their 2 quarterback. Maybe that vet in the room to help train up whoever they take number 1 overall. But then they got Andy Dalton. Trying to think. Those are all the ones I remember off the top of my head. So
Von Bell's a big time safety too.
Bell is at safety's pretty good move. Shy Tuttle at nose tackle, formerly of the Saints. Man, why are they stealing a couple guys from the Saints in free agency? That's interesting. So my biggest thing, honestly, though, is that I think knocked them out of the top 5 for me is, one, they had to trade a decent amount of capital away to get that first overall pick, including Moore, who is, was their best receiver, is super talented now with the Bears. I don't think Thielen's an adequate replacement, so they better know what they're going to do to address the receiver position in the draft or something along those lines, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I think Thielen's closer than people realize to what DJ Moore is. I think Thielen kind of had a production drop with the rise of Jefferson, right? I mean, the ball can only be thrown so many times, and you obviously are going to have a favorite target. And listen, when you're a really, really good receiver, but the receiver, one of the, 14, 15 receivers that are better than you in the whole league are on your team, your production's going to drop, right? So Thielen's going to be, I think, back up in terms of production. And then, like I said, getting that number 1 overall pick is big because you get your franchise quarterback. You have a quarterback-friendly head coach who has developed other quarterbacks really, really well, has plenty of experience doing that.
Yeah. And that's a part of this free agency.
That's a
thing,
huge
by the
part
way,
of this,
is
right?
coaching, obviously.
Yeah.
Reich built an amazing staff around him. That's why we think that the Panthers are probably going to be a pretty decent team this next year.
Staff. And if you're going to go and get a young quarterback like a CJ Stroud is what I think the rumors are, after his combine performance of why the timing of when they made that trade with the Bears, it's pretty likely it's CJ Stroud with the first pick. If that's your guy, you want to have the most friendly situation for him to come into. Going and getting a guy like Thielen, who is going to be a very big help to a young quarterback, getting Hayden Hurst, a reliable tight end, having an offensive line unit that's going to be bulked up probably in the draft, having a great experienced coaching staff around CJ Stroud, right? It's having a strong running game, getting Miles Sanders, right? Like all of that stuff is important if you're going to have a successful young guy come in. So many times we've seen young guys come in and get thrown into the fire and just on terrible teams with no help. And you got to wait 3-4 years, as they develop. What really speeds up the development process? Having a good team around him, right? Because you'll see his talent and his confidence skyrocket earlier than expected when the team around him has experience, can help him, can make him look better than he is at times.
And that's what important. I think is like these moves between Hurst, Thielen, Sanders are about reliability. I don't think these are the best athletes in the world. I think they're very reliable athletes. When the ball's thrown their way, they're going to catch it. They have a lot of experience. They run good routes. They know they have a high football IQ. All of those things, right? That will hopefully help him kind of develop faster. I will say this about Thielen, though. I think his production drop, yes, is partially related to Jefferson. I also think it's related to the fact, though, that he is getting older and slowing down. There were so many times this past season when I was watching the Vikings and Thielen just didn't run his route properly or was getting shut down by whatever corner he was going up against. And he's bitching for pass interference after the play. And don't get me wrong, any receiver, kind of goes ref, what the hell, every once in a while. It was a regular basis. I think I saw it at least once every single game that he played in. I think his actual athletic ability is probably starting to catch up with his age a little bit. And that's kind of my big opinion on this is Moore was a lot younger. So I would hope you're looking to address wide receiver in rounds 2 or 3 if you're the Panthers. So that's just kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some aging there, but I think he's still a high caliber receiver. Definitely a guy that you want to have on your team with a young quarterback.
Absolutely. I think he's a good number 2 for sure, but Moore was a number 1. So it's again, depends on what they do in the draft here. I think it was a good guy to lock in. There's still some holes to fill though, but I guess this is kind of year 1 of a rebuild for the Panthers. And honestly, they're looking roughly a 500 team in my opinion. So, definitely not off to a super bad start. Moving on to team number 5, we got the Dallas Cowboys. Now, it pains Mark and I to say this because we kind of are Cowboys haters. But look, they got Cooper Rush. Honestly, I'll say it, maybe the best number 2 quarterback in the league based off of how he played last year. Like, if you're looking for a good
guy wins, man.
quarterback, he was
The guy
winning
wins.
games,
He's
high completion percentage, lower number of interceptions than Dak. Like,
he knows the system. He's been around. It's not often you see a guy like Cooper who has experience in starts, won those games, looked really good in a lot of those games, has been around for 6-7 years, and doesn't get he could have probably went elsewhere, got a contract, and competed for a starting spot. He chose to stay. I think he likes where he's at. I think he likes the situation he's in. Chose to stay. And kudos to the Cowboys for recognizing his value. He might not play every Sunday, but something happens to Dak, God forbid, or Dak isn't your guy, and you realize that, and they just kind of how they realize Zeke might not be the guy after they already had paid him. Cooper's not a bad guy to have on your team, because you could still win games and compete with that defense and with all these other additions that John's going to cover right now.
And it's low cost, high impact move,
yes,
in my opinion. And then they got Ronald Jones, which to me, I'm not as excited about the Jones signing. I'm excited about the fact that they cut Zeke, right? That's really what they needed to do. Yeah. Zeke's last play as a Dallas Cowboy was getting pancaked at center, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, look, we got to put it this way. His production clearly dropped in the past couple of years. Tony Pollard is objectively the better running back at this point. They need to make room to probably keep Pollard in the future. Hopefully they learn from their mistake not to sign like a massive multi-million-dollar extension whenever that time rolls around for Pollard. But point being, they needed to let Zeke go. They needed to free up that cap space in the future. I think it was a good move, and Jones is a pretty solid 2-back as well. So
yeah, you probably upgraded, honestly. Jones, I think, in that system will probably give you more pace, give you more of a changeup than Zeke was able to. Listen, Zeke kept gaining weight and his production went down. Now let's call it how it is. He wasn't the same player that he was when they gave him that money, and Tony Pollard was just a better player. I mean, everybody in the world could see it. It was just like they were in denial. They're like, "Oh no, Zeke, we paid Zeke, so he's our guy." Well, right. they finally understood that, sometimes what you're watching it is what it is. Like, Tony Pollard's better. Let's get rid of the guy we paid a shit ton of money to for nothing.
Yeah, and look, you gotta, just kind of rip that Band-Aid off, especially at the running back position if it's taking up that much cap space. Another huge one is they really loaded up at cornerback, which makes the Dallas Cowboys defense pretty scary. Obviously, they got Gilmore, and then they also got Goodwin, who's a pretty solid corner as well. Add some depth there. I mean, with Diggs on the other side of the ball there, that is a scary defensive backfield complementing a very good front seven. So pretty stoked on that move for them. And then also, a big one is Cooks. Obviously, they went and got Cooks. I think that's probably one of the better receiver signings out of this entire free agency class as well. So
here's what you kind of covered, John, and I'm going to kind of summarize it, and so it's very clear for people, right? The most important thing when you're a Dallas Cowboys team and you're right there on the fringe of contending for a Super Bowl, you have to complement the stars that you have, right? So your star player on offense. You got Dak Prescott, who you've given a lot of money. He's supposed to be your star. And then you have CeeDee Lamb, right? CeeDee Lamb, I think, is a top 10 receiver in the NFL. I think he's grossly underrated. He was asked to do everything for them last year. You add Brandon Cooks on the other side of CeeDee Lamb. They're both going to have more productive seasons now. Maybe not just like their stats aren't going to rise, but they're going to just be better as a team and together. Having a duo like that. You see Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You see Waddle and Hill. Now they have somewhere in that comparable area at receiver, which will help Dak. Okay. You throw Gallup in there as well. You have 3 legitimate receivers on your team. On the defensive side of the ball, you have Micah Parsons. Like you said, you have a strong front seven that can create turnovers and can pressure the quarterback. You had Diggs, who can create turnovers, and he's a pretty good corner when he's not guessing routes. You add in a former MVP candidate. Let's not forget, 2-3 years ago, Stephon Gilmore was literally in the MVP, not Defensive Player of the Year, MVP conversation when he was with New England. A lot of people will say it's a system thing. No, you don't go into the MVP, conversation just because you're a system guy, especially when you're a corner. I mean, that's the hardest position in football. And having him now to complement Diggs, and then those two complementing each other with the front seven in front of them to force quarterbacks to want to get rid of the ball. Very, very friendly for that defense to have all those guys mixed together, helping each other out. And their defense was already really good last year. Let's call it how it is.
Top 5 defense for sure.
Top 5
Absolutely.
defense. Let's call it how it is. That was not their problem last year, and they still addressed it as if it was a problem. That's what I really like is those teams that they're not complacent with where they're at. Jerry said, "Listen, I don't know how many more years I got left. Let's go. Let's get this thing."
And that's
going.
been the narrative for a while, is that he's very impatient. He wants a Super Bowl before he's gone,
because he doesn't look too great. He's had a lot of success with the Cowboys. He wants to, I think he wants to have some more glory before he, calls it a day. Right. So it's kind of like now or never, especially with this whole Dax contract situation. So I love the Cowboys moves. You could easily argue that maybe they should be higher on this list, but yeah, we got them at 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4 on our list are the Miami Dolphins. So there's so much I want to talk about with them. First of all, right, really improved the defense. They got Elliott from the Lions, who's a damn good safety, and they got Jalen Ramsey. Again, improving that defensive backfield. That's super impressive. They also had a big running back signing that I'm forgetting, and he's going to be their 2 back behind them as well. Oh, yeah, Gaskin, right? So, I mean, running back room's really good. Obviously, they beefed up their offensive line last year.
They extended Raheem Mostert, too. Yeah, they extended Mostert.
And they extended Mostert, who is fast as shit, by the way. For
one
those
of the
who
fastest guys, in the
this
league.
might be the fastest team in the league when you're taking
without question.
Hill, Waddle, Mostert. Like, there is a lot of speed on this team, which makes Tua's job really easy. And then also another reason, right, talking about this 2 quarterback situation with Cooper Rush, they did the exact same there. They went and got Mike White. I think that was genius of them to go.
You got to have
that.
someone more reliable.
Tua having injury issues, they need somebody reliable.
That's a common theme, John. That's a common theme we're seeing with some of these teams that are like on that contending bubble. They don't want to leave any doubt, right? So like even a backup quarterback, a lot of teams won't invest or spend time trying to get the right backup quarterback there. They're especially with Tua as your starter, who's had the injury concerns. Like even if you don't have a quarterback with injury concerns, you never know, right? So if you have a team around that quarterback that's capable of winning a Super Bowl, which they do have the roster aside from quarterback to win a Super Bowl, you got to go get a guy that you can trust to throw in there if something does happen to your starter. And Mike White showed last year that he's got that potential. I think he learns sitting behind Tua, learning from Mike McDaniel. And they, like you said, got the defense stronger as well. This is a serious contender and probably the best division in football now, you could argue.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Also, David Long Jr., along with his name being hilarious,
was an absolute steal.
Absolute steal. He's a stud. He is very, very good. I don't think I missed anybody out of anybody major. So yeah, the Dolphins, they're ready to run it back. I mean, they really went crazy in free agency, kind of like they did last year. I don't know what their cap situation looks like overall. I don't know if the Bills kind of going to catch up with them in the next year or two here, but simply put, like, Tua's in a good position again. I think that they're going to have a lot of success next year. Maybe, not getting knocked out of the playoffs in the first round against the Bills. Like, they look damn good. So, and obviously year 2 with McDaniel too. Yeah.
Lots to be excited there. A lot of new guys that aren't new guys anymore. Right. And then you mix those guys that are in year 2, their coach, Tyreek Hill, guys like that. You bring in a bunch of these new guys that'll fit in on the defense. It's a serious threat in that division and in the AFC.
Yeah, absolutely. And that entire division is crazy now, which is, kind of a good segue. We're making the assumption that Aaron Rodgers is on the Jets to have them be the number 3 team here.
I would argue they're the second best, but you could put them at 2 or 3.
Yeah. And so I'm going to just assume that's a lock, because from what it sounds like it's going to be, it makes sense for both parties to make this happen. Obviously Green Bay doesn't want to, pay Aaron Rodgers. It's just probably going to take a while for them to get it worked out. It sounds like it might take another, 3 weeks up to the draft, maybe. So we'll see what's happening there. But look, simply put, Rodgers absolutely changes. They got kind of refreshed the receiver room. They got rid of Moore, which stinks for him. He's a great player, and I would have liked to see him play with Aaron Rodgers, but they did get a second-round pick for him,
which is
they
a
probably
good move for them.
Yeah, and they'll probably use that on a receiver. They got Hardman, who's a pretty good receiver. Obviously, you already have Wilson, and then they signed Alan Lazard, who I think is a very underappreciated receiver because he has a skill set kind of like a tight end. He's a very hard blocker. He's really aggressive in that sense.
Takes pride in blocking, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So their receiver room's looking really good.
I think Mecole Hardman is a little bit overrated. I think him with any other team, obviously him with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, I think his production is going to be, whatever with the Jets. But he's a speed guy. He's a speed guy. He'll help open up the other guys. You know what I mean? He'll help open up the other guys. They'll get him the ball in some interesting
$6
ways,
million cap hit. So, a little less than what we paid like DJ Chark last year, for example. Hoping that the Lions end up re-signing him as of recording this podcast. Nothing's happened there yet. Beefed up their offensive line a little bit, which is obviously helpful if you kind of have an aging quarterback that you plan on protecting. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here. Obviously re-signed their punter and kicker. And apparently signed Quincy Williams too, which I think I missed.
Also
but
big.
That's pretty big. Yeah. He was a stud for them. Their defense in general is really good. It sounds like they just kept everything the same over there. And why wouldn't you?
Well, they were so young already to begin with,
Right.
So they basically just kept all those young guys and brought in a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, MVP 2 times in the last 3 seasons. And you put him back with his OC that helped him get those MVPs, Nathaniel Hackett. So those two clearly have the chemistry. We've talked about that before on the show, but you have to realize how important that chemistry is in terms of the quarterback OC relationship and how important that's going to be in terms of how fast you can come into a new system. And it's really not a new system. I say new system, a new team, new guys. The system's the same. He's familiar with the system. So he's going to come in. It's not a new system. He doesn't have to learn new stuff. He just basically has to build the chemistry with his guys, which having Alan Lazard come in with him is going to help.
Then obviously like Salah being a defensive guy, like you can
right. The defense will take care of it. The defense will take care of business. Rodgers is the question mark, honestly, that comes in, but he's not much of a question mark when you have an OC he's familiar with, a receiver that he's familiar with, and then a bunch of young guys that sound like they'd be willing to learn, right? And like that are hungry to win, because let's face it, the Jets haven't won in a long time. The Jets are a lot like the Detroit Lions, and everything seems to be going right for the New York Jets, right? Just as we'll probably say in a second here with the Lions as well. Everything is lining up for the New York Jets. And here's one thing I'm a little bit worried about, John, because of how well the New York Jets are doing in free agency, how well they did last year with Zach Wilson at quarterback, bringing in an MVP, a Super Bowl caliber guy like Aaron Rodgers, having the weapons around him with that defense. Are we going to see the Lions advance to our first Super Bowl in our lifetimes, and maybe our only one we'll ever see, and then play against Aaron Rodgers and get our hearts ripped out and he'll just eat it in front of us?
I mean, honestly, I would absolutely love to see a Lions-Jets Super Bowl, because that is just the coolest shit ever. Those are two teams that I think nobody in the past 20 years has ever said they have a chance in hell to make it to the Super Bowl. And I think both teams legitimately have a path there. The Jets,
both teams are legitimate contenders, man, in the AFC. It just scares me, dude, because it would be the most demoralizing thing ever for the Lions to get there and to lose. Obviously sucks and it's heartbreaking, but to lose to Aaron Rodgers, oh my god!
Here's the thing to me though, is that like I truly think that the Lions are built to be a damn good team for as long as Brad Holmes is manager. Like, I really do truly believe that in my heart, that like Holmes is the guy for this organization, and he is going to continue to make us a really, really good team for the next 3-5 years to come. The way he operates as a manager is like, it should be a case study for, the Raiders of the NFL and stuff like that. Like, it really should be. So we'll see. Obviously, speaking purely hypothetical, I do agree with you that if I lost to Aaron Rodgers in the Super Bowl on the freaking Jets of all places, I'd be really pissed. But I can also say this: NFC might be the Lions next year. I'm freaking ready to go on that. We got one more team to talk about before we talk about the Lions, and that's the Bears. And look, Mark and I really talked this over a decent amount last podcast. my stance essentially still stays the same. I'm really impressed with their ability to get as much as possible out of their number 1 overall pick. They're locked and loaded for not only this draft, but next draft without having to give away a whole lot at all. Moore was a great signing for Fields. They went and beefed up their offensive line, signed Foreman, who is, I think, an underrated running back, Tunyon, who's a pretty damn good tight end. And then 2 huge linebacker deals, and also PJ Walker, which I think is
that's a good backup to have. Again, good key backup. You see that common theme. Teams that think that they're trying to reassure their team having a legitimate backup, right?
Yeah.
For so long, backup quarterbacks were like, no one cares for a long time in the league, if we're being honest.
Now it's like your quarterback gets injured, your season is over if you don't have a good guy to back him up in the modern NFL, 100%. So my biggest qualm with what the Bears did overall is that they shelled out a shit ton of money to 3 guys, which was Edmonds, Davis, and Edwards, right? So 2 linebackers, which I just can't say that linebackers are really a position of value to pay massive, long-term, high guaranteed money contracts to. And they did that for 2 people. And then you have interior offensive line, which again is not as important to address as, say, your tackles, right? Your exterior offensive line. And they shelled out a ton of guaranteed money to all 3 of those guys. I talked about it at length last time, so I'm not going to sit here and continue to talk about it. That's just the one place where I kind of paused a little bit on the Bears free agency is you had all this cap space to work with and you shell out a ton on 3 guys. They're not in a bad cap situation, but still.
I'll disagree with you there on the linebacker cap situation thing, only because, you had Roquan Smith, who's one of the best linebackers in the league. You traded him, right? So you had a void there at the linebacker spot, and you got 2 really good backers and really athletic guys that can move side to side that can cover as well in the passing game. So I think you needed to pay guys there. And, if you can get 2 of them, you get 2 of them, especially with the Bears. It feels like they feel like this is their time. And with Fields rising, they seem to be doubling down on the fact that he's their guy. So I think you got to get the defense right, and I don't know. I think those are 2 guys that you won't regret signing. And I know they paid them, but I think it was the right move.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just tough because of what the role of the linebacker in the modern NFL. It's kind of tough for me, but also them having a good linebacker or a good versatile edge rusher has always kind of been a Bears staple. And you talk about guys like Khalil Mack and Roquan, obviously. So I don't know. I guess just kind of keeping that brand alive with the Bears is kind of interesting, but
it's the Dick Butkus effect, dude.
that's exactly it.
You think Bears, you think Ditka and Dick Butkus. That's what you think of.
Oh, that's so good. But yeah, so the last one that we got to talk about obviously is the Lions, and this is going to segue into kind of a mock draft. Sorry, I'm pulling up I have all of these memorized, but I guess it's just nice for something to stare at rather than the Bears while we chat about it. Look, one thing I love about Brad Holmes is that he is aggressive without being stupid, and he's a great value evaluator in the draft and has consistently gotten value. And I can honestly say that the problem areas that we addressed, we can literally just draft best player available for the rest of the draft, not even think about it, just whoever Brad Holmes thinks is a dog, regardless of what position they play. And I would feel so good about that entire situation. Our entire defensive backfield had a complete makeover. And it was shortly after we released last week's podcast that they signed CJ Gardner-Johnson, who, for anybody who watches this podcast, knows is one of my very favorite defensive players.
John said we should sign CJ Gardner-Johnson 3 months ago, by the way. Close to after the Super Bowl had ended and we were starting to talk about, we were basically previewing free agency. It wasn't even on the horizon yet. And John goes, yeah, CJ Gardner-Johnson, if we can find a way to work something out and pull him in. And that was really the only guy John wanted to get. Then you want to talk about all the other moves, getting
Sutton.
David Montgomery on our offensive side of the ball to replace Jamal Williams, who I don't care what anyone says, it is an upgrade. He's a better player than Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams was a good culture guy. He was a fan favorite. You can't let your heart get in the way of your mind here, especially when it's free agency. Love Jamal Williams. It was good to see him as a Lion. Sad to see him go. but it was the right call because we upgraded. We got better on offense. And then you look at our defense. Secondary was the problem. Emmanuel Mosley, getting Cam Sutton. And then obviously, John, you called it 3 months ago. And then somehow it happened. CJ Gardner-Johnson choosing to come here, honestly, for less money than the Eagles were offering to get him to stay in Philly. He wanted to come here. He has a history with Aaron Glenn, I think, since high school.
Yep.
So listen, I mean, everything that they've done. And then you look at the draft, like John said, right? And just the shift. And I posted a long TikTok about this. You want to see a recap from last season until now of why the Lions are worth being talked about right now. And it's because guys want to stay here. Okay. And they're accepting less money to stay here. You have guys that are coming here. Okay. And accepting less money than we've ever had to pay. We used to have to overpay like crazy to get any average.
Now they're taking pay cuts.
They're taking pay cuts to come here. Right. We have guys that we stole from within our division, like David Montgomery. So we made the Bears worse. Okay. To get him to come. And then you have guys like Micah Parsons and a lot of the people in the world that just hate on. I mean, you should see the comments on these videos. It's just people that they're not Detroit fans. They're not really even a fan of anything. They just hate Detroit because we've always sucked.
They're used to us being bad. And the entire idea that we're like good to go for next season is like crazy to them. And I mean, like Parsons is coping here hard. Like we had, again, arguably the best free agency in the entire NFL, and Parsons is still coping with it.
He's still coping, right? Oh, I didn't say no one wanted to, just Jalen Ramsey. Well, here's the thing, right? Jalen Ramsey can go to Miami and go load up on the Dolphins, and that's a good move for him, and that's a good move for that team. But here's the thing, okay? People want to come to Detroit. People want to come to Detroit. It's become a clear thing, and I'll say this. Not only do we have a better free agency than Dallas, I think we had the best overall free agency, okay? And you want to talk about L.A., okay? How did the Rams do in free agency, Micah?
Yeah.
They did nothing. Right. They lost Ramsey in a trade that was lopsided, okay?
Right.
They lost Bobby Wagner, who's the leader of their defense, probably the best player on their defense over Ramsey. They lost Matt Gay, who was their only Pro Bowler, I think, on the team last year. I mean, we can fact check that. I think maybe that.
Robinson asked for a trade, so he's probably not going to be on the team.
Out of there. They lost Baker Mayfield to the Bucs. Okay, so you don't have a backup quarterback.
Talk about how important a backup quarterback is, right?
Yeah, and so what did the Rams do in free agency? If it's such an attractive place, how come no big names were going there this offseason, right?
Right. No, it's really, and like, again, like where were our weaknesses, right? Defensive backfield, interior defensive line, maybe interior offensive line, which we went and fixed. And then I assume we're going to address linebacker in the draft and probably low stress because like our corners that we got are pretty damn versatile too. And I think that's worth noting. So
I've never been more sure too, John, of you talk about a little bit of the Lions draft preview. Okay. And you posted a, kind of a trade with the Cardinals to get Hopkins and to get better valued picks. I'm not against that. I just think that we got to do something aggressive with this 6th pick because there's a drop off from if we cannot get Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, and I am much more in support of getting Will Anderson, like by a lot. Okay. But if we get Jalen Carter, I'm not going to be mad about it. But we have to get one of those two guys. We have to. Okay. With that 6th pick. So if you got to trade away a second rounder or that 18th pick to move up a slot or 2 slots to guarantee that you get one of those two guys. And if you really want to guarantee it, you move up to the 3rd spot to get Will Anderson.
Yeah.
And you leave no doubt. And that is the move we have to make that's like your all-in move. And I think there's not even a little bit of a regret if you're able to do that. If Jalen Carter falls to us at 6, great. I think he's going to be a good NFL player. I know there's a lot of buzz going on negative about him. But
look, we had negative things to say last week, but I think something that is worth considering is that dude probably just had one of the worst weeks of his life. And, as far as character issues as a teammate, I haven't heard anything about him being a bad teammate. I think he's just
teammates say good things.
Yeah, he's just an immature human. Like
put on the film, that dude is a baller. Okay. He's a baller. We would gladly welcome him into Detroit and allow him to grow up and right in front of our eyes and help us win a Super Bowl because he's a culture changing, team changing level player. Most people had him going number 1 overall before all this shit started happening. So if we can get a caliber player like that at number 6, great. If you move up to 5 or 4 to get him, great. If he's picked ahead of Will Anderson and we end up getting Anderson, wonderful. I would even rather have that happen. So that's what needs to happen for me to be 100% this was a perfect offseason for Detroit.
Or
That's
trading
the
with the
one thing.
Cardinals to go get Anderson, because I'm not mad about that either. I think your need to have like an insanely good interior defensive line is not that high if you have two ridiculously good edge rushers and linebackers that know how to blitz, which we do, right? Our linebackers aren't great like in coverage and moving laterally and things like that. Our linebackers are really good at plugging gaps in the run game. So,
that is the one thing I think we do lack is that athletic linebacker that's more of a third down guy, because we got to get Anzalone off the field on third down, and Rodrigo's not much better. So first and second down, sure, they're on the field, but third down and long after a sack, maybe you got to get somebody else on the field, dude, that can cover.
Well, and that's why I like CJ so much is that like he can play nickel, he can play safety, he can kind of play like a linebacker-esque.
So can
hybrid.
Sutton, honestly. Sutton can do that nickel, and so you have
I'm so
options,
excited to see what Aaron Glenn gets going with that. And then obviously Pleasant is a really good hire to be the DB's coach as well. So it's going to be gross. I'm so excited. That's last thing I'll say about, kind of the Gardner Johnson trade too, is that the reason why he took a pay cut is the stars just happened to align. They offered him a contract he didn't totally love. They started negotiating, and then Eagles got impatient and went and signed Slay when they originally were going to release him instead, which honestly, I think we would have pursued Slay had he had been the free agent too anyways. But I like Gardner Johnson a million times better for not only fit on the team culture, but he's younger. He has more upside right now. And he took a pay cut to come here. Like $8 million for the guy that had the most interceptions in the league last year. Like it's ridiculous.
It's such a big get. It's such a big, and people are still, they don't want, and I hated on the Lions 70% of last season. I've hated on the Lions most of my life. I've had normally a right to, right? But right now they're doing the right things. Like that's what's changing for me. That's why my tone with Detroit is changing. It's not that I think they're going to be better and all this stuff. I think they're going to be better because they're doing the right things to get better. They're doing the things they never have done this before ever in our lives ever. We always go sign some stupid free agent and we overpay them and they don't even want to be here and they're just coming here because we're paying more than anybody else. That's never going to work. It's never worked. And
now you have a bunch of underdogs with underdog mentality who want to play here,
who come here at reasonable prices.
Glasgow, dude. He was a stud. He just had to get out of there because Patricia was freaking crazy. The fact that he's back and so excited to be back. He has great chemistry with Decker and Ragnow. He's best friends with both of those guys. Like, they used to go fishing all the time together.
It's a damn near perfect free agency, honestly, for Detroit. And
it's
there's
amazing.
Just never been a time in our lives that we've said that. And you have draft value.
Who we brought back too. Like I think
everybody. Pretty much
everybody. Everybody. And not only that, but then you have guys taking pay cuts, right? Brockers took a pay cut. I think there's a couple other guys that took pay cuts, literally just to free up cap space. Bugs could have gone somewhere else. He said that he took less money to stay here. Same thing with Kaminsky. Like,
what do you think? What do you think of? So the one thing, I guess, if I'm thinking of like things we're still missing, like we've already covered, that third down athletic linebacker that can cover. We're definitely missing a guy like that. One more interior D lineman or edge rusher, to go opposite of Hutchinson. That's pretty much it, aside from backup quarterback. So we don't really have a true guy if something happens to Goff. What are your thoughts on the Cam Newton situation? He threw at Auburn's pro day. He has upside as like a goal line extra, piece that you can throw in there just as like hey, we're going to either give him the ball or you get an extra 6'5", 250 quarterback that can run a 4.5 is pretty legitimate to have on your roster. Not to mention he's got experience, right? He's played in big games. He seems like he's hungry, underdog, right? People are kind of writing him off. If we can get him for an affordable price, I'd like to see him as a backup.
I just think Newton creates a lot of noise everywhere that he goes, and it's a little distracting, in my opinion. I would rather
if he accepts a backup role coming into it. Like if he comes in and we tell him you're not going to
start. Is that his mentality? Like
I think he wants to start, but if no one else gives him an option and we offer him a few mil to come back up, is that better than sitting on your ass at home?
Yeah, I don't hate that. It's just tough because he's never really been like a pocket passer. He's always just been like a very athletic quarterback with a huge arm. And I don't think like he's, the quickest to make reads and stuff like that, especially like post getting a bunch of really traumatic concussions. He never really was that kind of QB. So I don't know. I don't hate the idea. I'd rather like swing in the draft on somebody like Hendon Hooker, for example. Like somebody that we don't have to pay a ton, is going to be reliable, is going to want to learn, has upside, all of that stuff. So I don't know. I don't hate that idea. Like there's definitely worse quarterbacks to go try to sign right now, but we'll see what happens. But another thing, right, is Holmes said that like that's an important thing for them to address. And Goff does not have an injury history whatsoever. So I just love the fact that he's being forward thinking and wanting to make sure that we're properly shored up at that position. So we had no bad consequences on not having a good second quarterback.
Dude,
last
I'm
season,
still here.
And he still wants to shore it up.
I'm still hearing rumors on like Lamar Jackson and like Detroit being a good landing spot. Like we don't want him here.
No,
we do not want that contract.
There's guys on the Lions team. They're like, nah,
dude, we do not want that contract. I trust our guy JD. Okay. Yeah. I trust Goff to do what he did last year to actually improve. I don't want that contract. I don't want the risks with him. I think we're better off with Goff with what we have around him. Like I really do. I don't think that we should even entertain that for a second.
Yeah, I agree. No, I completely agree with you. Okay, so now let's talk our worst free agency teams. Let's talk March Madness really quick, and then we'll do this mock draft. Sound good?
Sounds really good. I'll start because I already kind of covered it a little bit. The Rams are my worst team. I got ahead of myself. I couldn't help it when we started talking about Micah Parsons. You pulled up the tweet, that he referring to Jalen Ramsey and not wanting to come to Detroit. Basically beating around the bush, saying nobody wants to leave LA. No one wants to come to Detroit. Okay, right. Well, here's the thing. The Rams just kind of proved that take Micah wrong, right? Because they had a great free agency a couple years ago and they got Stafford in the trade and everybody went there and they won their Super Bowl. Great. LA's, everyone loves LA. It's beautiful. I think LA is one of the most overrated places in America. All right. Totally. And I will stand by that.
Totally.
And if you're not a celebrity, it's probably one of the worst places to be in America because it's just a bunch of nobodies that want to be somebodies that, let's be honest, only 1% of people become that somebody that everyone's going to LA to become.
Dude, and even wealthy people have a hard time there. You hear so many stories of wealthy people getting, like approached by homeless people and
or like there's a drug problem. There's a big drug problem in LA. Exactly. I mean, those people, some of those people, the people that don't have money have like depression issues and then they use drugs and alcohol to cope. And then the people that do have money have so much of it, they don't know what to do. So they're buying Coke and doing all this, doing shrooms, doing acid, just like experimenting with their, exterior world because they have so much money and time. They don't know what to do with it. Right. So it's just a bad combination. You have so many people that go out there to be actresses and end up just doing porn. Like LA I'm out on LA. I'm going to hate on LA because I can and because Detroit gets more hate than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit is treated like it's a third world country, and that's the only reason Mark and I are getting this defensive about it.
I get defensive about it, yeah.
Dallas, really? LA, really? Like, I get Detroit's not like a vacation destination by any means, but let's stop acting like LA and Dallas are like the best.
It's a destination for winning football games starting now. I'll say that. It hasn't been, but hey, places change, Places change, and Detroit's becoming something special's happening here. It's pretty obvious. I mean, you've heard Ben Johnson, you've heard Anzalone, you've heard Campbell, you've heard Swift, you've heard Jamal Williams before he left. Everyone's saying it. And it's just becoming more and more obvious. So that's my worst team is the Rams. They didn't do anything in free agency. They actually lost several key pieces. They got destroyed in the trade, giving up Ramsey. They lost Bobby Wagner. They lost Matt Gay, who was one of their best players as a specialist. I mean, they just didn't do anything. They lost Baker Mayfield, their backup quarterback. They're going to lose Allen Robinson. Who knows if Aaron Donald's even going to play? Aaron Donald hasn't even said he's going to play for sure. I mean, I think he's going to, but
I think he's going to run it back. But yeah, I mean, it's just everybody's tapped out. They got their ring.
They're tapped out. They got their ring. They're tapped out. No one wants to be there right now. Stafford's been. It sounds like Stafford's not even a guarantee he's going to play one or two more seasons. Like he's going to be.
He's probably got one season left in him, if I had to guess.
Yeah, so. Now, we just kind of laugh at that take. So
my worst is the Colts because this team should not be this bad. You look at this team on paper and you're like, what's the problem except quarterback, right? And they just can't figure it out. They have a ton of dead money they got to deal with now with cutting Matt Ryan. He stinks. I think we all kind of saw that coming to some degree, right? They've done this entire veteran quarterback carousel thing for years now, and it has never worked out for them. Can't seem to lose from their or learn from their mistakes. And then, right, they signed Gardner Minshew, who's probably going to be their starter to start the season because their quarterback options for where they're at in the draft, not very high, right? Like, again, 4, you're going Levis, Richardson, sorry. Right, like those are risky guys that are going to need to develop. Levis had horrible interception issues. You get Matt Gay, and that's like the
besides
most
Bryce Young
notable
and
thing
CJ
that I saw.
Stroud, dude, I don't trust really any of the quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's rough, and like this list is relatively short, right? And I hate to say it, but literally, with the exception of speed at linebacker,
They
don't
did get
know if I
Isaiah
recognize him.
McKenzie too, right?
Yeah, they got McKenzie. Yeah, which is okay. He was the 3 or 4 receiver.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was my worst team. I think they're going to be the worst team in their division next year.
Minshew mania, man.
Yeah.
Minshew mania.
Gonna be wild. And look, I have nothing against Gardner Minshew. I mean, he's
I love
actually
Minshew.
yeah,
But he's not a
played pretty
starter.
okay, but he's not a starter. Yeah.
One of the better
So-
backups you'll find, but not a
Where's that
starter.
Sweet 16 graphic you sent me? Oh, it's right here. My bad.
Should be on the Twitter sphere.
So March Madness, Mark doesn't deserve all the flack that Jack and I gave him. He actually predicted 2 things right. That was the fact that a lot of 1 seeds were going to struggle, and the Big Ten is fraudulent. And if you look at who remains, both of those things were pretty damn accurate, actually. So hats off to Mark for that. But
The rest of my picks sucked.
he built the rest. He built his bracket based off of those 2 assumptions, and you just can't build a bracket based on upsets. You're not gonna. Your bracket.
Yeah, I got a little bit trend happy. You know, I knew those. I felt pretty good about those 2 things, and then I just made every pick with those 2 things in mind.
Right.
And
For me, the Midwest side of my bracket is still perfect. The West side of my bracket, I think I have 1 wrong selection on out of the entire thing. So I'm doing okay. Out of a pool of 30 people, I'm in 3rd place. So we'll see what happens. I absolutely fumbled the bag on the South because I picked the wrong upsets, right? Probably a similar thing on why your bracket's imploding. And then I also
the hard
picked Duke
part
to
of
win
March.
like you did. So
John, do you have 3 teams from this graphic? 3 teams that you'd pick that you think have the best odds to win the whole thing right now?
yeah, I'm still high on UConn. They
Okay.
looked really impressive, honestly.
right.
Same thing with UCLA. I know they're on the same side of the bracket, but I think both of those teams have a legitimate shot at it. And then honestly, like I know we said Alabama has karma and all these other things associated. I can't deny how they've looked the best, this weekend. Like they looked really, really good this past
All right.
weekend. So that's kind of
My 3 are UConn. Like you said, I think they have all the pieces. They have the right coach. They can shoot. They have size. They play good defense. You heard Rick Pitino say that's the best team they've seen, all year. If UConn plays well, plays to their capability, they're, I think, one of the best teams left. Houston, I hate going with the 1 seed, but Houston with Marcus Sasser, I thought was going to be slow, kind of coming back into his role after his injury. He looks amazing, and they go when he goes. So if he wants to take them all the way, he'll take them all the way. And then honestly, a team that people are forgetting about, well, I'll give you 2. 2 teams that people are forgetting about. Kansas State looks really, really good. And they have the guard play that can get you there. I think they blow out Michigan State, by the way, in the Sweet 16
I think so
game.
too.
I really don't
really
think it's going to be close. But
Yeah.
Kansas State's a team I think that can do it. They can go all the way. And then the Zags, dude. Drew Timme, I mean, I think it's his 6th tournament or 7th
Dude,
tournament.
he's a grown-ass man. When I saw that he was, because again, I don't follow NCAA basketball very closely. When I saw that he was still playing for them, I was like, wait,
dude, the COVID
what?
year has gifted him,
he's
that
like
dude,
45 years old and he's still playing
it's
college
unbelievable.
basketball.
But people forget about them, dude. And I'm telling you, that UCLA Zags rematch, I mean, last year was probably the best college basketball game I've ever watched, was Jalen Suggs hitting that half-court floater that banked in to win. I'm really excited to see that matchup. But the Zags, people are forgetting about the Zags. I put them as my 3-4 team in there that's left of these 16 that can win the whole damn thing. I'm out on Alabama just because I believe the karma will catch up to them. I think San Diego State is a good defense, not great on offense. One team I think we got to give a shout out to here is Princeton. The Nerds, dude. The Nerds,
Revenge
the 15th
of the
seed
Nerds.
in the Sweet 16. Did you watch them play at all?
I watched both games. Yeah.
So how about them rebounding the ball? Where are they getting this? Like, where is Princeton getting the size? Like, why are those guys not at Kentucky or Michigan or Duke?
Well, not to mention too, right? And you talk about like rebounds. What the hell was Purdue doing?
Oh
You
my
know,
God.
like, I mean, they had all the size in the world. I was, again, don't watch a lot of NCAA basketball. What's his face? Their center that's like
Edie?
freaking, yeah. That is the biggest human being I've ever seen in my life. He was making other dudes on the basketball court look like they were like
He's
toddlers, and he was like a high
7'4",
school.
I think. He's 7'4",
Yeah,
7'5".
he's
Yeah, it's
7'4".
ridiculous.
I mean, and like, but what are you doing in the paint there? You're not getting half the rebounds. Like, you guys are struggling to funnel the ball to him, and then you're just going for threes. You make 5 threes out of 20-something attempts, and you're still going for it when you're only down by like 3 points. Like, dude, play basketball.
Yeah. What was your favorite? What was your favorite game of this past weekend? Mine was Furman. Mine was Furman upsetting Virginia, and just an absolute.
Furman was sweet. I honestly, watching Purdue lose that was really entertaining.
It was fun. It is fun to see Purdue lose. I don't know what it is about Purdue.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're a 1 seed losing is awesome, but just Purdue losing is hilarious.
There was one game that had me sweating in the second round that was really close, and I'm forgetting who it was. So my bad.
Kansas, maybe they because that Arkansas Kansas game was a good game.
Yeah.
Dude, the Furman ending, I just real quick want to cover this because, there's just no reason for him to turn and throw that ball like that blindly up the court. There was several options that they could have done to still win that game. He could have called a timeout.
Right.
Okay. And keep in mind, that's a 6th-year guard that had the ball in his hands, right? 6th-year guy that you would trust. He could have called a timeout. He could have allowed them to tie the ball up and you do a neutral possession, which the possession arrow was pointed towards them getting the ball back anyway.
Right.
So they would have just had a chance to inbound it again.
Right.
Or he could have thrown it off someone's shoe or something.
No, it was especially with how much time was left. Like, what are you doing?
Or keep in mind, just hold the ball and make them foul you.
Right.
And go shoot free throws. So
it was really bad. It was
really literally
bad.
The only thing that he could do in that moment to have them lose the game. It was the only thing, and he did it. And
it was like the Patriots game.
Dude, I had.
It was literally the Patriots.
It was literally Jacoby Myers. It was Jacoby Myers version.
All you have to do is nothing.
Yes, it was literally the same thing. It was the same exact thing. I had people texting me so mad that bet on Virginia. They're like, "Dude, I'm gonna drive there and I'm actually gonna."
Oh my god!
I'm like, dude, relax. I had Furman money line, baby.
It was really, really bad. So again, shout out Mark because he was right. Lots and lots of upsets all over the
chaos.
Place.
Still going to be chaos in the Sweet 16. That's I just posted a new prediction thing on the Sweet 16. Check it out. If you haven't already, chaos, dude. Chaos. 1 seeds are in danger. Alabama's in danger here soon. Maybe not this round, but next round.
For sure. Which I mean, a 1 seed in the Elite Eight. Now, what's Princeton going to do? Because honestly,
I think Princeton's going to win.
I know. That's what I was going to say. Is like Creighton has not looked too good this entire time.
I mean, they're a good team, but Princeton looks like one of the better teams in terms of how they're playing in the whole thing. And I'm telling you, if you can rebound like that, you can beat anybody. There's potential to beat anybody if you they were out rebounding Missouri, who had way more. I'm like, where are these guys coming from on Princeton? I was like, I thought Princeton would be 5 white dudes straight up, no one above 6'7", right? Those are normally what those teams look like,
right?
But they have some guys,
schools,
dude. Right? They have some guys on that Princeton team that should be playing at like Michigan or Duke, that are 6'10", that can jump, that are good rebounders, that can that are big, strong guys that can make moves in the post. I'm like, where is Princeton getting these guys? You mix that with the shooting they have and a great coach, they're a dangerous team.
Well, and I think you got to consider how quickly turnover in college basketball is now, where guys are going to the NBA so quickly. It really does give opportunities for some of these smaller schools, smaller teams that don't get that kind of recognition or that evaluation. It gives them a better opportunity to go up against some of these bigger Division I schools, because of the fact that those Division I schools are funneling half their team to the NBA every year.
That is one of that right there, John, is the anchor reason as to why we saw what we saw in March. The first weekend. All those upsets, all the chaos, all these nobody teams beating teams that are, have this standard of winning. What you just said is a huge reason why.
Right.
So that's just facts right there. I have nothing else to say. I can't top what you just said. That's just 100% true.
Hey, I appreciate it. Switching back to football, do you want to do this Lions mock draft?
Yeah,
7
dude.
rounds, all this good stuff.
let's do the mock draft, and once again, to be clear, John and I both think we should be aggressive with this first pick. So you want to do it with us doing a trade there? Can we do that or no?
Totally. So let's try. Do you want to go 6 rounds? Is that cool, or do you want to do all 7? Do you want to do 5?
Yeah, let's do the first 5 rounds.
Cool.
Okay, and let's if we can, let's trade up to get the 3rd or 4th pick.
So what we can do here is it will actually give us a probability that this can happen. So I'm gonna throw in my trade proposal and actually see what PFF says the statistical likelihood that that's going to happen. So what we're asking for is their 3, their 34, and their 66. And for those that didn't watch my TikTok or short or whatever, the reason why I think the Cardinals will bite on this is they get 2 first-round draft picks out of it in a rebuild year for them because Kyler's hurt, and I think they're just kind of throwing this year in the trash a little bit anyways. And also, Holmes really shines in the later rounds. And as Mark alluded to, there's really not a whole lot we need in the first round. So let's be aggressive and get the guy that we want, which Holmes is really great at being without being stupid about it. And then let's have so much capital in the later rounds that we can get linebackers, interior offensive line, interior defensive line, maybe a wide receiver, something like that. All of these positions that would be stupid to draft in the first round. Let's just load up and add depth. So 334. 66 for our 18 and 6. So currently it says this has a 31% chance to be accepted, right? So maybe you swap that out for the 96 or whatever. And then you also got to go and grab Hopkins. So this says very low chance to be accepted.
Yeah, I think Hopkins being in there is the
The thing with it though is that you look at what the wide receiver trade market is right now, it's 3rd and 4th round picks. So getting the 1 in there is the tough part. Let's see, 32% chance, 77% chance if you just take their 66 and 34. So do you want to try to roll with this? Do you want to try to trade elsewhere? We can also look at the Seahawks. Roll with this.
All right. Yeah, let's roll with that. Let's get the 3rd pick. Let's get our guy Will.
Trades accepted. Okay.
Now, obviously, we have to wait to do this trade, though, on draft day because we have to make sure Will Anderson's available. Because if he gets taken 1st or 2nd, trade's off.
Right.
So we have to wait till they're on the clock and call them.
I think both of these teams are for sure going quarterback.
I think so, too, but you never know, dude. You never know. Bryce Young throws this pro day this week. CJ Stroud did today. If one of those guys don't look good, you could see Will Anderson or Jalen Carter rising.
Right. So on the clock, Bryce Young went 1st. CJ Stroud went 2nd. I think in reality, it's going to be flipped.
It's going to be flipped.
And we're going to draft Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Boom.
Love it.
Got our guy.
Beautiful. So then it'll simulate up to the. So what's our next pick now? Our next pick now is what?
Next pick is 48.
Okay. So we got a minute there. But again, we did so well in free agency. I don't hate this. I don't hate having a little ball. I think we go linebacker here, John.
Or let's take a look.
Receiver.
Interesting. I was also going to say look at interior defense, right? Nobody that I really love here.
Check out. Yeah, let's
wide
see.
Receiver.
Don't love any.
And then we'll check out LB, of course.
There's got to be.
Henley's pretty legit. And Sanders is also pretty legit.
Scroll down a little bit, too. I just want to see who else they have.
Next linebacker is Williams, who I'm not really familiar with.
Can you filter it to just linebackers?
I think I have to
deselect the other two.
There we go.
Ivan Pace is still there, dude.
Go with Pace.
I love Pace from love him, dude.
We can probably shoot for him lower though, in my opinion.
You think?
Yeah. His rank is 107. So okay. PFF is suggesting he's like a 3rd or 4th round kind of guy. Who's that quarterback that you like?
We could get him with our quarterback, Duggan, but we shouldn't pick him this high.
Okay.
Corner or quarter? Did you say corner?
Corner.
I like go to corner and see if he's there. His name's Phillips.
Right there.
Yeah.
And
So
also 78. Another thing
yeah,
I
so we can get
might
both
want to look
guys.
at then is receiver or interior.
What about tight
O-line.
end? Check tight end real quick. Is the guy from Georgia still there? The tight end.
Darnell Washington's still there. That's who
Take him.
Yeah.
Take him.
So look, I think we're gonna do this. We're gonna go Phillips, and then we're gonna go that linebacker that you like too.
Love that, dude. If we pull that off.
So CB.
So now we're on the what pick is this? 55th?
Yep.
So 55th overall. Is Phillips still there is the question.
Phillips
from
is
Utah.
still there.
Now, why I'm so high on him is because I watched him play in several games. He's going to be a guy that there's a lot of guys that'll put ahead of him because he doesn't really stand out when you look at measurables and stuff. He's just a dog, dude. He's a playmaker. He's got a great knack for jumping routes. He's an interception machine. He's very physical in the red zone. He's an awesome man-to-man player, which we need because we'll play a decent amount of man-to-man in Detroit. And then he's just a playmaker, man. Like he has that mentality. He's not going to stand out when you look at him. He's not going to be like, oh, he's long. He looks athletic. No, he's kind of shorter, but he's just a playmaker. Another guy I like, too, is Tomlinson right there out of TCU. You got him on the fourth one down. He's nephew of LaDainian Tomlinson from the Chargers days back when he was a running back with the Chargers. That's his nephew. He's a stud, too. Freak athlete, another undersized guy.
We can probably grab all three of these guys. Tomlinson's probably not going to be there by 55. He might be. I'd probably rather grab him and then go for Phillips. And
okay. I'm good with either one of those guys. If we get one of those two. And then our next pick. So our next pick here is 66th overall.
Which is where we'd go Phillips, in my opinion.
Phillips or Pace.
Pace is still available from what
Okay.
Let me just double check that so you don't hate me if he doesn't make it there. Yeah, he's still here. 107. Next pick's 81, so we'd still be picking him early, but I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So go Phillips.
So we went back-to-back DBs, right?
Yep.
So we're loaded in the defensive back room.
And then we'll go LB and grab Pace right there.
Yeah, he's a stud with Cincinnati. Athletic guy. Freak athlete.
And then I think the only Lions pick they got left is 152. We have no round 4 picks this season, unfortunately.
I love the fact that we got Washington with our second round pick. He's a freak. And
have him go block the shit out of everybody, and it's always a
but he's also a
mismatch
red zone
anyways.
nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say he's a mismatch anyways, and he's literally gonna be Goff's like 4th option with who we have.
Now I could see him getting taken way higher because he continues to rise. But
okay, with our last pick, let's
check out the quarterbacks.
Okay.
I just want to see who's left. Stetson's there.
Stetson.
Is Max Duggan there? He is. He's down there.
He is. Another one that I don't hate, honestly, is DTR. Really athletic dude. Not the best thrower from what I've seen.
I would take Duggan or Stetson Bennett with this pick and feel good.
Let's go with Stetson because I feel like his play more closely models Goff's than Duggan, even though he's a good bit shorter. That's
even you don't think you would rather have him even with some of the character stuff that he's had.
I don't know, man. He's been playing football a long ass time. He's kind of already an old man already. That's kind of how
I'm saying. Do you want to go with the younger guy? A couple of years younger, Duggan. By the time
Duggan's
Stetson
kind of got underdog mentality, and he's a ginger too, which we've seen with Cooper Rush. That's pretty good.
And your boy Andy Dalton.
And my boy Andy Dalton, my favorite quarterback of all time, Saints legend.
I would be good with either, and I think they both will be there.
Let's go Duggan. Why not?
Yeah, dude. Duggan.
Honestly,
beating Michigan,
we'd take any of these guys probably in like the 6th or 7th round in actuality. Right. But since we're doing a 5-round draft, it's whatever. This is gonna fill out. PFF is gonna give us a horrible grade on this, by the way, but that's fine.
Hey, I don't care what PFF gives us.
No, that's why I said that's fine. I don't care what PFF.
It's. I think also it's because we took. We probably should have taken offensive lineman maybe instead of one of those corners. But
oh yeah, look at all these C+ draft. Let's go, baby. But honestly, again, To me, it's going to be, we could be totally wrong on this, by the way, and I'm still just fine with it because of the fact that I think Brad Holmes is legitimately just going to fall in love with certain players, regardless of what their position is, regardless of the positional need. Could be a receiver, could be a running back, could be a linebacker. I don't know. What I do know is that he's going to find players that he knows have value based off of where he's selecting them in the draft, and he's going to pick them, right? And some of these people you might have never heard of. Others, like I didn't know who the hell Kirby Joseph was when he selected him. Not on my radar whatsoever. Rodriguez was, but Kirby Joseph was not. Dude's a stud, right? He's probably going to develop into a really good NFL safety. And that's the type of, Amon Ra, right? Like, we don't even need to have a conversation about that. That's perfect drafting. But look, getting some more depth at corner. I know you just signed free agents there, but
if I would redo it, I would probably take just one of those two between Phillips and Tomlinson, and I would be good with either. Those are my two favorite corners in the draft, honestly. Will Anderson's obviously the primary get for us. And then if we're able to get Washington, it looks like PFF has him as the 71st overall on the big board. We got him at 48. So we probably could have got him with our next round pick too, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if we can get him and one of those two corners, and then we have to get an inside linebacker. It doesn't have to be Pace. I mean, there's other guys like him.
Now, does Pace have the kind of, horizontal athleticism to kind of fill that need? Because that's like, I want us to go linebacker.
That's why he stood out to me compared to those other guys on the board there but there's guys better than Pace that we could get in. And I think maybe we even go linebacker before we go corner or Washington, for getting
it's a slightly more immediate need. That's the thing, man. Like, I think Rodriguez and Anzalone are totally fine for what they're doing. People are so mad that we paid Anzalone. I just disagree with it, honestly.
I don't love it. I mean, I don't hate it. He's just kind of he's kind of
Right. I mean, it's like locking in a right. It's like locking in a good third receiver option, right? Like, that's how I view it. It's not this. We're not paying Ansel. We didn't overpay for him. We're paying him like $4 million in guaranteed money a year, which is not bad. And what he does is, first and second down, he plugs the shit out of whatever gap he's supposed to hit. That's all you need the dude to do. We do need somebody who's more athletic, able to get horizontal, able to cover, able to read things a little bit quicker. But I'm totally fine with it as long as we kind of address that in the draft. That's kind of how I feel.
Who's another guy too that we could get very late and maybe even in free agency if he goes undrafted. And I don't know where can you do me a favor and look where he is on the big board if he's on there? Troy Brown, who we're working on coming on as a guest as well. One of my former teammates. He's grad transferred to Ole Miss. He's a linebacker. He might be considered more of an outside guy because of his size, but he's a guy that can cover, a good backer to have on the field on third down. He's kind of almost like a hybrid safety outside linebacker. He would be a steal if we can find a way to get him on a roster.
He's actually not even on the
so there's a chance we could get him.
So you could probably get him as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, he was a 3-time all first team guy in the MAC. He had a really good SEC career too since he transferred. I mean, he was the one who sacked Will Levis when they played and hurt his arm in that game. So he's got big moment experience and he's a hell of a playmaker, freak athlete too.
Yeah. No, I just love the fact that we literally don't feel any pressure, like at any position, really. Like, we can address positions.
What's the one way? Because there's always a way you can screw up, right? I mean, everything's going so well. It seems like everyone who's a Lions fan is loving everything we've done. There's really not any hate except for maybe the Anzalone thing, but again, nothing drastic. What's the one thing that the Lions could do that would just throw all of this sideways? I think honestly, it's taking a quarterback with a 6th pick.
I completely agree. I think the way that Holmes has built this, he wants to win a lot this season, and he wants to keep his job. And the only way both of those things are going to happen is if the team is built not necessarily without the future in mind, because I don't think that's the case. I think he's built this team to have a lot of longevity, but I just don't think quarterback, if that's what we're going to do, right? If that's really what we want to do, let's trade up and go get Williams next year. I feel so much better about that than what our options are going to be at 6. That would be the one thing that sets me off. Really the one thing this entire draft I don't care what Holmes does, with the exception of taking the quarterback at 6. That's kind of how I feel about it.
That's
Honestly,
how I feel too.
I'd rather we trade back at 6 if
Or a running back
Carter
at
or Anderson
6.
aren't there.
I don't want
I mean,
a running back at 6 too.
I don't
dude,
think
because
we're
I
taking
wouldn't
Robinson
be like
at 6. I don't think
I mean
that's happening.
he is projected a top 10 talent on the board.
If he's there at 18 though, like go for it.
I don't think we need it. I mean,
honestly.
I wouldn't say I think he is a generational running back, but with Montgomery and Swift, you know, I guess it gives us room to kind of work trading Swift.
Right. Which is what I'd look to do next season. I don't think we should extend him. I think we should keep Montgomery and we should address another running back in the draft, like frankly.
Right.
So I don't know. But yeah, I mean that's really it. And I just love the fact that Holmes has all the freedom that he does now to just go and get the guys he likes without any pressure. I would be absolutely shocked if this team does not win the NFC North next season. I really think people are saying, "Oh, the Vikings." I think we're going to beat the shit out of the Vikings.
Well, we already did.
I think we are going to. Yeah, but game. They beat us in the first game. They got.
But we played horribly, and that was Dan Campbell at his finest, just doing random. You know, yeah. Dan Campbell talk about horribly coached games. That was one of his worst.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it seemed like he learned from it though. And he says he takes the regrets from that game with him everywhere. He won't stop thinking about the decisions he made.
That's really the only thing that still worries me a little bit about, you know, any doubt, because we won some games, right? Everything looked better at the end of last. I still have a little bit of doubts about Dan Campbell's ability to manage a game. You know, he's doing a great job motivating
as a head coach though throughout the season.
I think he has too.
In the same way that our players have. Like I think
he's gotten better
as a head coach. So
John, my only worry is like you look at the coaches of the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 Super Bowls, right? And you start to look at those names and it's like, okay, those guys are all legendary coaches, right? There's one common thing. They all have quarterback and superstar coaches, right? So, and I don't know if we have either. That's my one worry in Detroit. And that's what I think people have been saying. Like me and John definitely jumped the gun and we're saying they're going to win the NFC. Look out for him, Super Bowl watch. And people are like, dude, are you nuts? Your quarterback's Goff and you still have Dan Campbell as your head coach. It's like, well,
look, the Eagles were 9-8 and they had a young, talented team and nobody was saying they were going to the Super Bowl the next year. They drafted super well. They plugged some areas that they needed to plug, and then they went and crushed it in the playoffs. They did not even have a difficult time getting to the Super Bowl. We've talked about this. So to me, like the Lions have the ability to do the exact same thing. And honestly, as far as the head coaches go, kind of similar profiles, right? I think Campbell's like less annoying. Like Campbell, like when Sirianni talks, I'm like,
Sirianni's smarter than Dan Campbell in terms of just X's and O's. I mean,
that's what you have Ben Johnson for, though.
Yeah, Ben Johnson is very smart.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Ben Johnson has a degree in math, by the way,
dude.
I don't know if you know that.
That's my only worry. Is all I'm saying with the Lions.
I get it.
Dan Campbell, you know what I mean? I love the guy. He does a lot of things well, but to take that next step, like the Lions are preparing to do, roster wise, assistant coaches wise, draft wise, that head coach position does he's kind of an idiot at times.
Without Dan Campbell, the Lions come out of the 1-6 darkness to end up with a winning season. I don't think so. Like I really
we're not in a 1-6 without him either. I think we're 3-3 or 4-2.
That's fair.
So that's my whole thing, right? People give him credit for the turnaround, and he deserves a lot of the credit. But he was a big part of why we won 3 games the year previous and why we started 1-6. Right. And that's just we weren't that bad roster wise. We really weren't. Like we weren't good. But
I think our biggest issue, honestly, too, was that we were still very much, let's call it developing at defense, right? We are not going to have that problem. We are going to hit the ground running in week 1 next season. We have a very experienced defensive backfield. We're going to have an upgraded defensive line, most likely. And we're going to have the inexperience of guys like Joseph and Rodriguez. None of that's going to be there anymore. So that's my opinion on it. Sorry, go ahead.
Can we do one more thing, John? And can we look at the Lions schedule? I'm sending you this right now on your Twitter. So it should pop up in your messages here in a second. But let's just look at this and just go through kind of win-losses really quick and be like, okay, what do we think? Because I think it looks pretty favorable. And there's some games that are tough, but I think it's a pretty favorable schedule to not only win the division, but have potentially, 11, 12 plus wins.
I said this when I first saw the schedule, and I'm going to double down on it right now. There is, I'd say, an above 50% chance that we go undefeated at home. I really, truly believe that.
Yeah, I mean, you got your division game. Like the Vikings could be tough depending on,
At home,
Raiders.
though,
The Raiders.
if
the
we're going
Raiders
to
will
lose
be
to the
better.
Vikings, we're going to lose to them at Minnesota, in my opinion. No way at Ford Field. I'm thinking Raiders could pull one off, but honestly, I am not sold at all on Josh McDaniel, like at the slightest, in being a good head coach. And I
that
think
home
Garoppolo's-
opener, dude, that home opener against Chicago is so big. It's so big because Chicago's
Well, we don't
another
know.
team that's
We don't know if that's exactly the case, right? The schedule. These are the opponents. The schedule has not been released, so we don't know.
Okay.
We don't know for a fact if Chicago's actually the first team we play to kick off the season. So yeah, I mean, look, we might struggle with Denver. We might struggle with the Raiders. We might struggle. I don't think we're going to struggle with Carolina at home because that's a revenge game for multiple reasons, right? Stole a bunch of our coaches, stole some of our players, and were essentially the loss that kept us out of the playoffs last season. That's a revenge game right there.
Revenge game.
100%. But seriously, I think these could all potentially be wins. Looking at the away schedule,
it's tough. It's tougher.
I'm scared of KC. I'm scared of the Chargers. I'm more scared of the Saints than I used to be. That's a revenge game technically too.
If Lamar's playing, that's Ravens game is
Ravens is going to be tough, and Cowboys are going to be tough, right? So those are 5 games that I think we could lose away. My prediction for the season: 11-6.
Yeah, I could see. I think we win more than 10 games. I think we probably win. I think we steal one of those games you just said, those tough away games. I think we steal 1 or 2 of those, and I think we lose 1 home game. So I'll go.
You're going like 13-4.
13. I'm going to say 12 wins.
12 wins. Okay. So I think for the first time in our history, Mark is more optimistic.
That's for sure. First, what is the actual over under in terms of wins betting?
Lions record.
I'm curious because it had to have gone up, and it'll move again. But if you can even get it right now,
yeah, the odds haven't dropped. If I remember correctly, they dropped in the summer last time, like June or so.
Yeah.
Maybe their odds to win the Super Bowl are plus 3,000, which I think is like the 9th or 10th best. To win the NFC, it's plus 1,100, which I think is like the 3rd best. And then to win the NFC North is plus 155, which is the best. So
wow, we're favored to win the division. When was the last time that happened?
Couldn't tell you. I could not tell you. So look,
and I can't. It's just lining up so well too, John, because not only are we putting the pieces together, but the division around us, right? Thielen leaves Minnesota. That's a huge loss for them. Rodgers leaves Green Bay. That's a huge loss for them. Yes, the Bears seem to be kind of rising, but they're still, I think, behind us in terms of...
They're not ready to go yet. We embarrassed the Bears at home. That we were so clearly the better team, it wasn't even funny. Like, they were mentally checked out by the second half of that game, which doesn't really happen in the NFL. So, yeah. I mean, look, you're going to not hear the end of this for the next 4 months from Mark and I, like, especially off season. We don't really have a whole lot better to talk about. The Lions are going to be ready to go, and I'm super excited for it.
Expect some more movie reviews out of me too.
Yeah, we'll get those going. I need to. You know what I saw actually? Everything Everywhere All at Once, which
I haven't watched. That is it worth the watch?
It's the weirdest movie you will ever watch, and at the same time, you'll be ready to shed a tear by the end of it.
So I was told that I would cry, laugh, poop my pants, and be hungry all at once.
Yeah, it's probably accurate.
Okay. I don't know.
I don't know what the hunger means. I don't know what the hunger part.
It was a very weird thing, but that's why I remember it. It was a good friend of both of ours. I'm not going to drop her name live, but she told me that that's what would happen. That's just a very emotionally, it just hits everywhere.
Yeah, you're but while you're watching it, you're like, why the hell am I in my feels about this? This is the weirdest movie I've ever seen.
Is it
So-
good? Like watch or no watch?
Watch, 100% watch, no doubt in my mind.
Okay.
So
That's been on my list of like maybes.
Okay.
Of
you'll have to text me one to check out, and we'll recap next week what our opinions of the
maybe
movies.
I'll. Is there like an exciting ending, or like should I like film like my reaction to the ending of the movie or anything?
No, it's there's not like a big epic moment like that, but I would be interested to hear your opinion on it for sure.
Sounds good. I'm gonna have to watch that pretty soon.
All right, we will see you guys next week with some more movie reviews and some more off-season talk, and potentially a couple killer guests before this draft happens.
Some killer guests coming, draft prep, dude. Our merch, my merch right here. I'm repping it. Hats are nice.
Our shit.
Check them out.
Let's go.
And we got more stuff coming too. John and I are working on that right now, designing some new stuff for closer to the season. Some team issued stuff.
Hey, let us know what teams you want to see for sure. Obviously, Lions.
We know the
is
Lions.
one of them, but
we know we have a lot of Cowboys people that basically
Love
listen
us.
to us just to hate. They hate us because we hate on them. So
I would like to thank the Cowboys fans for supporting the social media algorithm, just to let us know. How
they're
much
there,
you
dude.
disagree with our
They're there and they're
opinions.
strong in force.
They are.
A lot of Niners fans too.
That's interesting. Hey, I always got favorable opinions about the Niners. I love the way that team runs itself. So, y'all can hang. Let's go.
We
Brock
just love
Purdy.
football altogether, dude. So just expect some new merch coming out. Check out the merch we have. Check us out on social media. We love all you guys.
Ticker's been down there since the start of the episode. This
John
time.
got
Let's
the
go.
ticker right this time.
Let's go, baby.
Check us out, guys.
We will catch you later. Peace.
Peace out.